Hi, this is Sarah Mikesell with Global Ag Media, and today we're joined by Dr. Yulin Ma. He is the president and founder at Hanley International, and also joined by Kevin Strecker, who is the key account manager also at Hanley International. Thanks for being with me to both of you guys. I really appreciate it. And today, Yulin, Kevin, and I are standing in Findlay, Ohio, here in the United States, and we're in one of Hanley's 5 warehouses located across the United States. So, Yulin, we're going to start with you today. Can you share the founding story behind Hanley International and what motivated you to start the company in 2019?
Hey, Sarah, first, really appreciate the opportunity we got at this interview. You drive all the way to come here. And before I talk about Hanley, I want to give a little bit, talk a little bit about myself. I came to the state 20 years ago from all the way from China here to study my PhD at the University of Kentucky. And, after I finished those, I joined Hanley International as a research, and then I was a technical service for almost 8 years. And for me, I always have like entrepreneur spirit. That's why I went on to get my MBA at Chicago Bulls. And during those time, I was with the customer, with a lot of good people around me, and with our industry. I was amazed by the fact, almost like 70-80% of those premix components actually come from Asia. And our idea was born. I said, what the heck? Why I cannot use my background as a bridge, to connect the people from other side of the world to bring affordable product to here. That's how Hanley was born there. When we talk about our Hanley, Hanley themselves actually not so much meaning here, but Hanley actually means sea and ocean. When you talk about it, when I was at World Pork, we talk about it with friends. I said, hey, if you get a chance to go to China, he said, I'm afraid to go to China. I said, hey, if you have friends in China, suddenly everything's so close. That's what it means. Handy means a friendship and a connection here. That's also our goal, to help there's always, the other side of the world have great products and great technology. We want to bring those products in to help our customer here. That's always our goal here. That's how Hanley was come up.
Thanks so much. And Kevin, I'm going to switch over. Tell me a little bit about your background to get us started.
Sure. So I actually started out in production back in the early 90s, and I spent 25 years working in production management for 2 top 40 swine integrators. And after 25 years, I had the opportunity to go to work for a animal health nutrition company, and I was a director of swine sales for them for almost 9 years. And then with the relationship that I had with Yulin, he asked me to come aboard, and so I accepted, and I've been with Hanley now for a year and a half. And throughout that process, I had a really good opportunity to be in other venues, 21st Century Pork Group, I was involved with there whenever we were doing production, and then the NPPC. Served on several committees with them. Hanley's still a very active member in the allied industry portion of the NPPC. So, yeah, that summarizes kind of where I've been.
Fantastic. And tell me a little bit about some of the products and offerings that you have here at Hanley International.
Absolutely. So at Hanley, we really pride ourselves on a vast array of different products that we have. And we've got some different solutions as well, just commodity type of products also. So to start off with, we have like a product called Boreox. We actually have exclusive distribution rights with that product. It's one that we bring in. It actually is a vitamin E replacer, and that's been very good for us. We've got some really exciting studies that are being done with a very popular university right now that should be released this November, so we're excited about that. We've also got some of your aminos, your lysine, your threonine, which we're kind of getting out of some of that stuff. But then we've got flavorings like Pro Garlic, Fly Guard from the cattle side. We've got our phytase, which is called Superphy, which actually was just added to the K-State phytase calculator back in December, so that was very exciting for us as well. We've got Super Xy, which is our xylanase product. We've also got tribasic copper chloride, or zinc hydroxychloride, manganese hydroxychloride. We've got other, trace minerals like our Hanley Glycol. We got an Essential 4 product as well, our Advanced D, which is our version of High D or Smart D.
Right.
And so the one thing that we really pushed out this last year is we have done some research with a third-party independent research company, as well another integrator on a new product called Forminator. Okay. And we actually pushed that out at World Pork, so that's another one that we're really excited about that can help with average daily gain in feed intake. So
very good. And these are a lot of fundamental components to the pig diet, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's diving down deep. Most producers, they understand the corn, the soy, the DDGs, but this is the back end of in the VTMs and so forth that they're going to want that out. And some of it will be add-ins, obviously, not just necessarily in the VTM.
Very good, excellent. Well, thanks so much for that.
Absolutely.
And Yulin, Hanley International talks about combining global and local solutions. What does that mean in practice for swine and poultry producers today?
Sarah, that was a very good question there. So, you think about a Hanley, think about how we want to position. We want to be the bridge, because for me, I firmly believe, there is always a lot of good technology around the globe. That's our role. We've been take advantage of the vast global, supplier network there. That's why we've been connected to the supplier, we've been connected to the free forwarder, we've been even a carrier, even a warehouse nearby the port. We actually been kind of from the other side of the world bring product here.
Right.
That's how we connect, how we do that. That's called a global to the local. And also to meet all the customer need, we have to be localized. A lot of stuff you bring in you cannot use right away. That's why just Kevin mentioned, one of the product we call it borax, which is a vitamin E replacement. We can bring in very concentrated products, very concentrated. But when we look at what a customer need here, we blend down exactly replace vitamin E50. That's one replacement. And also like a Superfy, we can bring in 100,000, 200,000, even 300,000 FTU per gram, very high concentrated product. But when we come here, a lot of people they could not use. We just blend down to a very small, 3,000, 5,000 to 10,000, depending on what the customer need. And that's how we do our solution. In the meantime, we have some product called Hanley Hanley mineral premix there. So those are customized products we can directly use on sow, we can directly use on nursery pigs. That's how we use the global solution. Actually, Kevin's hire is another great example. Kevin have a great experience, with 25 plus years experience with the U.S. industry. He knows exactly customer need, so we can feed a global solution to the customer need. But in the meantime, we talk about when you bring stuff to overseas, when we bring like 2 months on ocean, and also a lot of effort being put in there.
Right.
That's why we actually did a very strict quality control. When we talk quality control, we ask the supplier to fill out, we ask all the paperwork, all the supplier questionnaire, and we do a lot of product testing. Nobody gonna ship before we qualify them.
Right.
And also even they ship, we have to ask them to test sample before they ship.
Right.
And once they got here, we have to double testing and random testing to make sure the product is good. We would just want all the global solution to really come into here to have high quality product to meet the customer need here. So.
Excellent. Very good. Because that quality, I mean, your people are working with corn, soybeans, regular commodities, right? That may have issues, right? May or may not, depending on the type of season. This is something they should be able to depend on, right?
Yes. Because you think about it, we ship global stuff. We want people to trust. That's why they want to trust us. We want to make sure we did our work to make sure we have strict SOP. We have a qualified individual here, and we follow FDA. We follow all the quality standard, what a normal standard should be. And we've been very vigorous on those to meet the standard here. So.
Fantastic. Very good. Well, I appreciate that. And Kevin, I'm going to switch back to you. What makes Hanley unique?
So like Yulin was explaining there a little bit, about bringing those ingredients in and so forth. The one thing as I think back to my production days is there was many a day that we would sit around a conference room, production management, upper management staff, and we were sitting there trying to figure out how we could save costs. And do we reduce or cut in half our vaccine and half dose it?
Right.
Do we change this? What do we do to come out of that? We'd spend all day in there a lot of times trying to figure that out. And a lot of times we'd come out of there with maybe only 10 cents a head savings,
Right.
which was frustrating at times, obviously. Right. But then I got to thinking about it, more and more as I got involved with the nutrition company is that the majority of producers, they can tell you exactly when they're going to break with a disease. They can tell you what their PSY is going to be.
Right.
They know all of that. But whenever you start talking about the diets and what makes up 70% of their cost,
Right.
they really have very little knowledge outside of what's my corn cost, what's my bean meal cost, what's my DG cost.
Right.
I mean, those are obviously the top three.
Right.
But when you're looking at, your aminos and some of these other ingredients like your hydroxychlorides or even VTMs, I mean, we can do VTMs as well. We actually bid those and work with different blenders. But they had very little clue on that. And it was always ask my nutritionist or let's just get the cheapest product in. Well, the cheapest isn't always better. Right. And what we're trying to do here at Hanley is actually make it to where we bring in really high quality product because there's only a team of 5 of us.
Right.
And having warehouse space versus having fancy office space actually allows us to take that cost and share that back with the customer. And that's our goal with Hanley. So I really liked that from a positioning perspective whenever Yulin and I were talking through all this. And it really incentivized me because I'm thinking, even though I'm in sales and I've been in sales for the last 10 years plus, I'm still a producer at heart.
Right.
And I don't think that's ever going to leave. And so I want to do what's right for the producer, and having them understand that or helping them understand that or providing them and or their nutrition team with good quality product is our way of doing that at it's a cheaper price. It's not a cheaper product.
Right.
It's very high quality, but because we don't have the overhead, we're able to achieve those things. So there was that. I mean, we work with a lot of blenders. We work with different universities. We work with third-party trial,
Right.
and so forth. And we've got strategic partnerships, both stateside as well internationally with our manufacturers. Yulin is getting ready to leave here this next week to go to China and go through and talk with all of our manufacturers. So we've got a lot of support from them as well that can help us with, product evaluations, data, and so forth. So if a producer needs a certain product, we're able to find that. And we carry the key ones, but if they need something special, we can do that as well.
Can do that.
Especially with Yulin's ties back to China, which is very positive for us. But having said that, it actually is a benefit because we like to say yes. Right. And we don't want to say no. And so that allows us to do that and just, kind of finishes the circle per se.
Right.
So.
Very good. And you mentioned research. If one of you hadn't said it, I was going to say it because I've worked with Yulin long enough to know how important research is to him.
Absolutely.
Right? And you mentioned that with consultants and with universities, but that's important.
Absolutely. And we get hit by it all the time, and we've got some relationships that are established relationships, 20 plus year relationships. They obviously know myself, they obviously know Yulin, and there's a trust already established because the rapport that we established with them early on. And so they know the groundwork that we're putting behind this already. So they may ask a question, hey, do you have the PCB testing, or can you provide the COAs, or what testing do you have on particular products? And we can do that on all testing on all of our products. But then we've also got, some different companies, other nutrition companies that we sell to, some different blenders that we sell to, as well producers that, their nutritionist or their production team may not be as familiar with us as some of our long-time relationships.
Right.
And so, then we'll really dive into, a lot more of the data. And, getting asked those questions never bothers us.
Right.
Because that's how we learn also. And that actually gives us the context and information to be able to share with future customers as well. So it's all good, and we welcome those questions, and we've always been able to provide, some good answers back.
Yeah.
And, by doing that, we've gained some sales, and then there's some that are still, teeter-tottering.
Right.
But I've got full intentions of bringing them over, and
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it will happen as we gather more information, because we're going to continue to do a lot of that third-party research. Right now we're working with University of Colorado, University of Arkansas on some trials, also K-State on some trial work. So, I mean, there's 3 in different species.
Right.
They've got their own deal, but we're working with 3 top universities right now on that. Our phytase, actually, a lot of work was done on that by the University of Purdue with Dr. Hanstein.
Right.
And then obviously K-State, did their due diligence on our product as well. And then, just like I said, third-party individuals. But when we go out to do the sale, if anybody wants to see a sample of our product, we're more than willing to share samples. Some have actually wanted to send our samples off to their own labs to be tested, or do their own trial work, and we'll support that as well. So we're not scared of trials. We're not scared of providing product, and we actually welcome that.
Great. Fantastic. Well, thanks a lot, Kevin.
Absolutely.
We're wrapping up. Yulin, is there anything else that you wanted to add?
As I reiterated what are we trying to say, Hanley means a friendship connection. We want to bridge. We want to bridge those good product to our solution, to our our customer here, and everything put in the bag. You can trust us. There's a high quality product ingredient here. So I really want you guys just place the order right now. So.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Yulin, for all the information today. And you too, Kevin.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I enjoyed seeing your warehouse here. One of 5 across the country. So thanks again, guys. I do appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much. This is Sarah Mikesell with Global Ag Media.